Do you feel stressed about money no matter what you do? I was trapped in that same anxiety too. But once I made a few small changes, I started feeling great about my financial situation and made it easier to save more money. So, in this video, I'm going to show you 7 simple changes that will help you stop stressing about money and feel financially free. And let's start with the one change without which you will never be able to actually enjoy your money. Back in 2019, I had just started my first job, and I was super happy to finally earn my own salary. That I didn't want to spend any of it. I just felt like I needed to save every cent. So instead of going out with my friends or doing anything fun, I just spent all my time alone in my room. At first, it seemed great. I was saving a lot of money. But soon I started feeling isolated, like I was missing out on life. But at the same time, I was too anxious to spend even a couple euros. I continued feeling this way for months and I almost reached burnout. But then I realized something very important. Saving is important, but what's the point of having money if you never enjoy it? Once I understood this, I started allowing myself to spend responsibly, and now I'm able to enjoy my money while also growing my savings without stress. But this doesn't mean spending recklessly. You still need to keep your expenses under control. But how do you do that? First, accept that money is meant to be enjoyed. You work hard to earn it and you deserve to use it. Second, control your spending with a simple 15% rule. So basically, every month, set aside 15% of your income for your own guilt-free spending. This means you can use this money however you want without guilt or anxiety. You want to go out for dinner, take a weekend trip, or just treat yourself? Go ahead. Because as long as you stick to your 15%, you'll never have to worry or feel guilt about spending again. But if you don't also make this second change, you will quickly lose track of your spending. Imagine you decide to start dieting, and you're often told to count every calorie you eat to track your progress, which in theory makes sense, but in practice it quickly becomes too much. I've tried it myself many times, and each time I quit because it felt like an extra time consuming thing. And budgeting works exactly the same way. You're typically advised to track every single cent you spend. And again, in theory, it sounds great. But let's be honest, in practice, it just takes a huge amount of time, and most people eventually give up. But likely there's a better system that's quicker and won't overwhelm you. I've personally used this method for years, and I've never quit. So, what is this system? I call it the fixed budget. And the idea is very simple. Instead of tracking every small expense, you divide your spending into just 4 categories. First, you have the fixed expenses. Those you're obliged to cover, like rent and taxes. Second, you have the investments, the money you use to grow your wealth. Third, you have guilt-free money, which you can enjoy without stress. And fourth, you have the savings, the money you set aside for your future goals and security. Now, instead of counting every single cent, you only have to track these 4 buckets, which is faster, simpler, and far less stressful. Ideally, you would allocate 55% of your income to fixed expenses and then 15% each to investments, guilt-free spending, and savings. But you can adjust these numbers at first to better match your personal situation. So, with the fixed budget, managing your money becomes easier, quicker, and stress free, and you will never feel overwhelmed by budgeting again. Which brings us to the next big problem, because without solving it, you will always feel lost with your money. Imagine you've just bought a new IKEA wardrobe and you're building it, but it came without instructions. And so you struggle for hours trying to understand how to actually assemble it, and you feel like you're never going to make it. Or maybe you even managed to build something, but it's unstable because you forgot to use half of the pieces and it will probably just fall apart soon. That's exactly the same with accumulating money. If you don't have the instructions, or as I call it, a 100k plan, you will feel completely lost about what to do. So how do you build your own 100k plan? First, clearly define your own money goal and its time frame. For example, you might want to save 50,000 euros within the next 5 years. Second, take a look at your current situation and ask yourself, if I keep doing what I'm doing now, will I reach my target? If the answer is yes, that's perfect because it means your plan is already working and so you can relax and keep going. But if the answer is no, don't worry. It just means you need to adjust your approach. Maybe you need to learn a new skill to get a promotion, or maybe you can simply reduce some expenses to save more money. This will clearly depend on your own personal situation and goals. The point is that by creating a plan for yourself, you will always know exactly where you're heading and how you will get there. And this clarity will give you confidence, peace of mind, and the feeling of having your financial situation under control. Next, I'm going to show you the exact thing that will help you feel like you have enough money, whatever happens. Imagine you're on a road trip through the desert. Everything's going great until you get a flat tire. So you head to the back of the car to take the spare, but it's not there. You forgot to pack it. And now you're stranded in the middle of the desert. No way to call for help, no way to move. You're just stuck, hoping someone passes by to save you. And the same can happen with your finances. Because if you don't have an emergency fund and suddenly lose your job or face an unexpected expense, you'll just quickly find yourself without money or options. But how do you build this emergency fund? It's simple. You just need to save enough money to cover at least 3 and ideally 6 months of living expenses. And if you don't have it already, building it should definitely become one of your top priorities. Because once you have an emergency fund, you will always have a cushion to fall back on, no matter what happens. And believe me, knowing you have this safety net will remove a huge amount of stress from your life. Still, most people fail here because managing their finances feels difficult. But when you do this next step, it will only take a couple of minutes per month. Back in 2020, I started tracking, saving, and investing my money. But this meant that every month I had to spend time organizing everything to keep things running smoothly. It was taking a lot of time and it was incredibly boring. But well, I didn't have any other solution, so I continued that way. Or at least that's what I thought. Because now I've changed how I do things and it takes me almost no time at all. But how can it be that fast? Well, just like using a dishwasher is faster and easier than washing dishes by hand, automating your transactions is much quicker and simpler than doing everything yourself. So, if you automate all your expenses like rent, savings, and investments, you won't have to spend time managing your finances. Everything will go exactly where it needs to as soon as you receive your salary. And this way, you just have to set it up once, and then your money takes care of itself. The only thing you will need to do is to rapidly review your fixed budget every month to see how you're doing, because everything else is already handled. And believe me, managing your finances couldn't get any easier. This next change is actually a mental shift that helped me a lot to feel like I was doing fine and that I didn't need to stress as much about money. I've been consuming personal finance content since I was a teenager. If there was a new book about money, I would read it. If there was a new video, I would watch it. I learned a lot, but I also always felt like I was very far from where I was supposed to be. And it's only recently that I finally understood why I felt that way. And it's probably impacting you too. Because by continuously consuming American content, I started comparing myself to them and trying to reach their same goals. But the reality is, it's like comparing bananas and mangoes. Americans have higher salaries than Europeans, but here in Europe, we often have good free healthcare systems, while Americans don't. We have very affordable universities, whereas they have to go into debt to study. And despite recent increases, the cost of living in Europe is often still lower than in the US. So these are two completely different worlds that shouldn't be compared. Even so, I was doing exactly that. But now I finally managed to stop comparing myself to Americans. So how do you escape from this comparison trap? I use the two very simple steps. First, clearly define what being financially successful means to you. For some people, it might mean buying their own home. For others, it might be the freedom to travel the world. Either way, clearly understanding this will help you stay focused on what matters to you. The second step is simply to track your progress based on that. Nothing else should define how you're doing or stress you. Then sure, everybody compares themselves to others now and then. But if you manage to stop measuring your success through other people's standards, you will definitely feel less stressed and you will be much closer to achieving your own definition of success. Which brings to the next big step you must take, because without it, you will never feel good about your money.
Take this glass of water, for example. I continuously put water in it, but since there is a hole in the bottom, it doesn't matter how much water I put in, it will never be full.
That's exactly what happens with money. If you don't know how much money you need for the life you actually want, you will never feel like you have enough. There's always going to be more to earn, more to chase, and more to stress about. But here's the truth. Most of us think we need way more than we actually do. So the question is, what does enough look like for you? To answer that, you can follow these two simple steps and use the Google Sheet I created that is linked in the description to make it easy. So first, imagine how you would like your life to look in 10 years. To do that, ask yourself questions about the lifestyle you want, such as what type of job do you want? Do you want a family? Or what type of car do you want? By answering these questions, you will design your ideal future. Second, calculate the cost of this lifestyle, which you can easily do by using the Google Sheet I've made, which will help you get a concrete number. Sure, it's an estimation, but it's far better than just having a vague feeling of how much you need. And once you have this number, you will finally have a clear view on what's enough for you, and you will start seeing yourself making progress toward it over time. And believe me, this will make you feel calmer, happier, and more fulfilled. But even if you manage to stop worrying about money, there are still some traps that could ruin your finances. I've seen many Europeans fall into these traps, often ending up anxious and struggling just to pay their bills. And that's why I've made a video showing exactly what these costly mistakes are and how you can easily avoid them, potentially saving yourself hundreds of thousands of euros. And you can watch that video right here.